G'day groovy humans and welcome to a groovy enlightened life. I'm Joseph. This episode today is going to expand upon what we started to explore in episode 2 around 4 stages of self-discovery. Answering that fundamental question, who am I? And we will be exploring stage 1, alignment to self, which is all about exploring in depth our identity, our egoic self versus our spirit self or soul self, and discovering who we are by shedding who we perceive ourselves to be. I hope you can join me today, so sit back, relax, grab a cuppa, and let's get cracking. Alignment to self. Discovering who I am by shedding who I perceive myself to be. Now, this area of focus in our lives is all about our identity. It's all about how we perceive ourselves to be. It's all about how we show up in the world. It's all about how others perceive us to be, whether that's friends, family, or society. And it's where most of us start our journey of self-discovery, is trying to understand ourselves. Like, who am I really? What makes me tick? What am I passionate about? What lights me up? What are my skills and talents? And not always, but usually we get to this stage in our life because something has changed. And that change could be anything from an existential crisis. One day you just wake up and go, oh my God, who am I? What am I doing here? What's this planet and universe things all about? What about God? Or it could be something along the lines of just an everyday event. Perhaps your status changed in society or at work or in your life. Perhaps a world event caused you to rethink things in life, about yourself, about others, about the world we live in. Perhaps you lost your job. Perhaps you got a promotion at work. Maybe you became a parent for the first time. Perhaps there was a loss of a loved one. No matter what, happened to get you to this point, there was something that changed. And what we'll be doing today is we will be exploring in a little bit more detail around this concept of alignment to self, around really and truly digging in and discovering who we are. So let's start to explore, what are we really talking about? Now, by now, you've probably realized that I'm a little bit of a structured person when it comes to my thinking and my exploration in life. And so I've sort of broken down the what. What is this about, this alignment to self, into a couple of little areas that we'll talk about today. So the first area is around, our attributes as a human. So it's all about our personality, our strengths, our passions, our weaknesses. It's about our skills, our talents, things that we're good at, things that we're not good at, about the things that light us up, make us happy, bring joy to our life. It also includes our physical attributes, the work of epigenetics, our biotype, and if you're into it, the exploration of astrology. The second area of the what this is all about is around the labels and titles, or the hats that we wear in life. Now, these titles, hats, and labels have been either placed on us by ourselves throughout our life, through our experiences. They have been placed on us by society, or they have been placed on us by others and others' expectations and perceptions of who they think we are and how we show up in the world. Now, the third area is around society, environment, and culture. So this is, all those external things, the society that we are raised in, the cultures that we are raised in, belief systems that we are raised in, the environment that we live in and are raised in, all contribute to our identity and who we perceive ourselves to be, and how we show up in the world and how others perceive us to be. Now, the fourth area is around our experiences. So we're talking about those things, those people, those events that have shaped us into who we are today. Now, these experiences help us build our belief systems, our values, our perceptions and viewpoints of not just ourselves or others, but also the world we live in. Now, these 4 areas that I've broken down to help us understand what we're actually talking about when we're talking about alignment to self and our identity is a double-edged sword. And the reason for that is because everything we're talking about here is what we perceive ourselves to be. And these perceptions are formed from all these external inputs, external information, external feedback that we receive. So while it's really interesting and important for us to understand our identity of self and to really explore into these areas and formulate those perceptions, we have to be very, very careful that we're not using all of these things that we determine about ourselves, our labels, our personality type, our strengths, our weaknesses, our experiences, how we were raised, what culture we were raised in. We're not using those things as excuses to be who we are, to justify how we behave and what we believe and why, because that's where we become trapped. That's where we become limited. And that's where we become stuck. To recap on the 4 areas of what are we talking about when we're talking about alignment to self? We have our human attributes, so our personality, our physical attributes, our biotypes, our talents, our skills, our strengths, numerology, astrology, all those things you could possibly think of that makes up our human attributes. Then we have our labels and titles, the things that we've placed upon ourselves, that society has placed on us, and that others have placed on us, based on our behaviors and how we show up in the world. And then we have society, culture, and environment, the places that we were raised in, belief systems that we were exposed to. And the final area is our experiences. So those people, things, events that have shaped us to be who we are today. Now, before we explore the why is it important to discover who we are in depth at this identity level? I would like to introduce you to the concept of duality. Now, our whole world and what we perceive right now as humans and how the world's made up and what we understand, what science has told us, what philosophy has told us, what spirituality has told us, is that we live in a dualistic world. What I mean by that is we have male and female, masculine, feminine, positive, negative, yin and yang, dark and light, good and bad. There are all these opposites that we have created in this world that we live in, which leads us to this fundamental belief that there is something to do with balance, some sort of balance that we need to maintain in life and in this world. And this concept and understanding of duality has also been applied to our own lives, in that we have a egoic self and a soul self. Now, why I introduce this concept of duality now in relation to our egoic self and our soul self is because this stage, alignment to self, is the exploration of our egoic self. So it's all about our identity. And why this is important that we explore this part of ourselves is to develop a deeper understanding of self that helps us to navigate and choose our responses to things in life as opposed to just reacting to them. It's also important because if we don't understand who we are and have a baseline, then it is difficult for us to then rewrite and create the life that we actually want to live. So this exploration into self, and even though it's our identity self, our egoic self, is still super important because it helps us to understand where we are currently at right now, what's missing in our lives, and where we actually want to be, what kind of life and lifestyle we want to create for ourselves. And we can't do that unless we have a baseline, unless we have a foundational understanding of who we are and where we currently are in our life. And the beauty of all this, as I mentioned before, we can rewrite and recreate and dream into being that world, that life that we actually want to be a part of. Now let's talk about the double-edged sword side of things when we're exploring our identity and getting that deeper understanding of self, is that as humans we tend to attach to it. We tend to attach to our identity and our stories and our experiences and allow them to rule our lives and control our lives and our thinking, our behaviors, our emotions, our feelings, which then creates and establishes our perceptions. So as you can see, if we get trapped in this cycle of trying to understand ourselves at this egoic identity level, we can tend to go in a bit of a circle, round and round and round, seeking something, trying to understand at even a deeper level who we are. But that's not the only part of ourselves. As I mentioned before, we have this soul self. And by understanding that this soul self exists, we can develop a deeper understanding that our egoic self is merely a self-image. It is who we perceive ourselves to be, and is not actually our true self. So how do we obtain alignment to self when we're dealing with these two selves, or the perception of two selves? Well, the short answer to that is that there is only one self. So in this stage of alignment to self, what we are establishing is that we have an identity that we are generally attaching to, and that forms our perceptions and the way we navigate the world and the way we respond and react to events and triggers in our lives. And we also have this soul self, which is the observer. And the observer is not affected by our feelings, our thoughts, our perceptions, or our memories, or the events that occur around us. So what's important to note about obtaining alignment to self in this stage is that a connection must be made. So instead of having this dualistic nature, which we are led to believe, we need to understand that it's an integration. And that's why I said earlier that there is only one self. And that one self is an integration between our soul self, our observer, and who we perceive ourselves to be, our self-image. And that ultimately is how we obtain alignment to self, through exploration, through establishing a deeper understanding, and the realization that there is only one self. Now, through any of the stages of self-discovery, it is dynamic. There is nothing that you achieve, so it's not like it's one and done, or I've managed to successfully finish this area of my life at all. It's not about that. It is a journey. One last final note I would like to make about alignment to self, and that is after we've discovered who we are and we really get that deeper understanding, then we need to go through the process of acceptance. And that's acceptance of self, just as we are today, based on all of our experiences, based on everything that makes us perfectly human, is that acceptance. And that's probably one of the biggest parts in this stage. It's all good and well to discover who we are and go in deep, but it's really about that acceptance and saying, you know what, this is who I am right now, and I'm the best I can be right in this moment. And that's okay, and I'm okay with that. Knowing full well that there could be opportunities for improvement, opportunities to reach that highest potential that you're aiming for, and to create and dream into being that life and that world that you want to be a part of. I'm going to leave you with a few questions to ponder today. One is from Deepak Chopra, and he asks, when you ask yourself, who am I? Who is actually doing the asking? The other questions to explore would be, who am I beyond my titles and my labels? Who am I beyond my perceptions, my beliefs, my feelings, my memories? Who am I beyond my stories and experiences? Thank you, groovy humans, for hanging out with me today and delving into the world of alignment to self. I hope it's brought a little bit of clarity and understanding around this particular area. Obviously, this is just the beginning. It's just touching on the very surface of what this stage and area is in our lives. If you are interested in the show notes, head over to sagacityrising.com/AGEL005. And if you would like to continue the conversation, head over to the community at tribe.groovyandlightenlife.com. Thank you once again, groovy humans. Maya out.